She stepped in front of the gun. Lorenzo Moretti changed the rules that night. I should have known the rain was a warning. It came down like bullets that night, hard, cold, unforgiving. The kind of rain that drowns secrets before they can crawl to the surface. I stood outside that warehouse on the Brooklyn docks at 2:17 a.m., soaked to the bone, my heart a war drum against my ribs. Matteo's last text still glowed on my cracked phone screen. "I'm sorry, Fia. Tell Papa I love him. My baby brother, 23 years old and stupid enough to think he could swim with sharks and not get eaten." The warehouse door was rusted, half hanging from broken hinges. Inside, a single bulb swung from the ceiling, casting shadows that moved like living things. And there, God, there he was, Matteo on his knees, wrists bound, blood dripping from his split lip onto concrete that had seen too much death. But it wasn't my brother that stopped my breath. It was him. Lorenzo Moretti stood over Matteo like a fallen angel carved from obsidian and Old Testament fury. 6'3" of tailored darkness, black hair slicked back except for one rebellious curl that kissed the scar splitting his left eyebrow, eyes the color of wet stone. Dead eyes. Beautiful, merciless, dead eyes. The gun in his hand wasn't pointed at Matteo yet, but it would be. Soon. 2 men flanked him, one built like a cathedral, all scarred knuckles and silent menace, the other thin as a blade, watchful as a hunting cat. The entire room smelled of rust and rain and something darker, something final. "You swore the oath." Lorenzo's voice was silk wrapped around a knife, low, almost gentle. That's how I knew he was going to kill my brother. "You took my money, my protection, my name, and you spat on all 3. Matteo sobbed, actual choking sobs. "Don Moretti, please, I didn't mean. My sister doesn't—" The gun rose. I didn't think. Thinking is for people who want to stay alive. I ran. Past the cathedral of a man who tried to grab me. Past the blade who actually looked surprised. Straight into the space between that custom Beretta and my brother's skull. The barrel kissed my sternum, cold metal against my racing heart. Rain dripped from my hair onto Lorenzo Moretti's wrist. Our eyes met, and the world tilted. "If you want him," I heard myself say, voice steadier than it had any right to be, "you go through me first." Silence. The kind that comes before an execution or a miracle. Lorenzo didn't move, didn't breathe, just studied me like I was a painting he couldn't quite understand, a masterpiece or a forgery he hadn't decided yet. I'd spent 6 years restoring Renaissance art in a Soho gallery. I knew how powerful men looked at beautiful things, with appreciation, with possession, with the certainty that if they couldn't own it, they'd destroy it. Lorenzo Moretti looked at me like all 3 at once. His thumb moved. The hammer uncocked with a sound softer than a heartbeat. "Cut him loose." The cathedral hesitated. Lorenzo's glare could have split marble. The zip ties fell away. Matteo scrambled up, reaching for me, but Lorenzo's hand was already there. Large, scarred, impossibly warm. Closing around my wrist and pulling me away from my brother with a gentleness that terrified me more than the gun had. "Take the boy," Lorenzo said to the blade-thin man. "Make sure he understands the gift his sister just gave him." Matteo was dragged into the rain, still crying, still breathing, still alive. Because of me. Lorenzo stepped closer. Water ran down his jaw. His cologne was cedar and smoke and something ancient. Power, maybe, or damnation. "You just bought his life with yours, Fiammetta Brancato." He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. Men like Lorenzo Moretti know everything. "The rules changed tonight," he continued, thumb brushing my cheek. possessive and terrifying, and so gentle I almost forgot he'd been about to execute my brother 30 seconds ago. You stepped in front of my gun. Now you step into my world. Matteo lives, but you... His lips curved, not a smile, something darker. You are mine. I should have been afraid. I should have run. I should have screamed. Instead, I looked into those dead, beautiful eyes and felt something crack open in my chest, something I'd kept locked away since the night my mother overdosed when I was 16, since I'd raised Matteo alone while working 3 jobs and night classes, since I'd learned that the world doesn't save you, it just keeps taking. I don't belong to anyone, I whispered. You do now, cara mia. His voice dropped to velvet and violence. And I always keep what's mine. He released my wrist, stepped back, gestured to the rain-soaked night beyond the warehouse. My car is waiting. You'll come willingly, or my men will carry you. But you're leaving with me either way. I looked at the door, at the 2 enforcers, at the gun he'd slipped back into his shoulder holster like it was part of his skeleton. I looked at Lorenzo Moretti and saw my entire future rewritten in those obsidian eyes. What happens if I run? He almost smiled. I like a chase, Fiammetta, but I always catch what I hunt. The warehouse felt smaller, the air thinner, my pulse a riot. I walked toward the door on my own 2 feet. Not because I was brave, because I knew, bone deep, soul certain, that the moment I'd stepped between that gun and my brother, I'd signed a contract written in blood and rain, and something that tasted like fate. Behind me, Lorenzo Moretti's footsteps followed. Even, unhurried, inevitable. Like death, like gravity, like every dark romance I'd ever read alone in my apartment at 3 a.m., never believing I'd live one. The car was a black town car with tinted windows and a driver who didn't look at my face. Lorenzo held the door open. Waited. I slid inside. He followed, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him like a furnace. The door closed. The rain hammered the roof. And somewhere in the darkness between the docks, and wherever he was taking me, I realized I'd just made a deal with the devil. The only question was whether I'd burn or ignite. If you're already feeling the fire, a quick subscribe keeps the darkness coming. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. The penthouse overlooked the Hudson like a throne overlooking conquered territory. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, art that belonged in museums, a Caravaggio in the hallway, a damaged Botticelli leaning against the wall in what Lorenzo called your restoration studio, as if I'd agreed to stay. I hadn't agreed to anything, but I also hadn't left. Your room is upstairs, Lorenzo said, shrugging out of his wet coat. Underneath, his shirt clung to shoulders that could carry the weight of empires. Ezio will bring your things from your apartment tomorrow. I didn't say you could go through my apartment. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Neat. No ice. Handed me one. I didn't ask. I should have thrown it in his face. Instead, I drank. It burned all the way down, pooling heat in my empty stomach. Why am I here, Lorenzo? Because you're safer here than anywhere else in this city. He leaned against the window, backlit by the New York skyline, impossibly beautiful and entirely lethal. Matteo stole from me Fiammetta. $10,000, pocket change. But the people who put him up to it, they're not pocket change. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? Your brother was a pawn. The Mancusos used him, threatened your father's hospice care unless Matteo fed them information and skimmed protection money as cover. Lorenzo's eyes never left mine. Carmine Mancuso wanted me to kill one of my own men, wanted me distracted, wanted a crack in my armor. And instead he got me. Instead he got you. Lorenzo took a slow sip, his gaze dropping to my mouth, then lower. A complication he didn't anticipate, neither did I. The weight of his stare made my skin feel too tight. So I'm... what? Bait? You're protected. He set his glass down with a soft click. But protection has a price, cara mia. You work for me now. That gallery job? Done. You'll restore the pieces in my private collection. You'll live here. You'll be seen with me. You can't just... I already did. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. The moment you stepped in front of that gun, you became part of my world. You want your brother alive? Your father's care continued? Your own life intact? Then you play the role I give you. And what role is that? His hand came up, cupping my jaw with a gentleness that made my knees weak. Mine. I jerked back. I'm not some trophy you can... No. His voice went dangerously soft. You're the woman who looked death in the face and didn't blink. You're the flame that just walked into my empire and set the whole thing on fire without even trying. Trophy? He laughed, low and dark. Kara, you're so much more dangerous than that. He stepped back, released me, left me shaking. Get some sleep, Fiammetta. Tomorrow, I introduce you to my world, and trust me, you'll need your strength. He walked away, disappeared into the shadows of the penthouse, leaving me alone with $1 million view and the terrifying certainty that I'd just fallen into something I couldn't climb out of. I went upstairs, found my room. It was bigger than my entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool, a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in my exact size, dresses, shoes, lingerie that made my face burn. He'd known, planned, prepared. I was a bird in a gilded cage, and the door had already locked behind me. The next morning, Ezio arrived with 3 suitcases. He was the blade-thin man from the warehouse, mid-40s, silver at his temples, eyes that missed nothing. He set my things down without a word, started to leave. Wait, my voice cracked. My brother, is he alive, scared, smart enough to keep his mouth shut? Ezio's expression didn't change. For now. What does that mean? It means Don Moretti showed mercy once. There won't be a second time. He paused at the door. You want to keep your brother breathing? Don't make Lorenzo regret last night. He left. I stood there, surrounded by my old life packed into suitcases, wearing a silk robe that cost more than a month's rent, and tried not to scream. Lorenzo found me that afternoon in the restoration studio. I'd been staring at the Botticelli for an hour. The Birth of Venus, damaged along the left side, the goddess's face half obscured by centuries of grime and poor restoration attempts. Can you fix her? Lorenzo asked from the doorway. I didn't turn around. Maybe, if I had the right materials, the right time. You have both now. He came closer. I could feel him behind me, a wall of heat and controlled violence. What do you see when you look at her? Damage, I said quietly. Something beautiful that people tried to fix and only made worse. And you think you can succeed where they failed? I don't know, but I have to try. Silence. Then his hand, gentle on my shoulder. You and I are not so different, Fiammetta, both trying to restore something broken, both knowing we might fail. I finally turned, looked up at him. What are you trying to restore? His smile was knife-sharp and devastating. Everything they took from me. Before I could ask what that meant, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression going cold. Get dressed. Something elegant. We have a dinner tonight. I didn't agree to Armani or Valentino. He was already walking away. Choose quickly. We leave in 2 hours. Lorenzo. He stopped. Looked back. This isn't a request, cara mia. In my world, you're either at my side or you're a liability, and I don't keep liabilities. The door closed behind him. I stood there, shaking with fury and fear, and something that felt dangerously like anticipation. 2 hours later, I was in a black Valentino gown that hugged every curve, my hair swept up, my hands trembling as I clasped a diamond necklace that probably cost more than my student loans. Lorenzo met me at the bottom of the stairs. He stopped, stared. Something flickered in those dead eyes. Heat, hunger, possession. Perfetta, he whispered. Then he offered his arm like a king offering his queen the throne. I took it and walked straight into the lion's den. What would you do if the monster who saved your brother looked at you like you were the only beautiful thing in his ugly world? Drop your answer below. The restaurant was the kind of place where even the silence was expensive. Private room, mahogany table, crystal that caught the candlelight and threw fractured rainbows across white linen. 6 men already seated, all of them watching as Lorenzo pulled out my chair with a possessiveness that made my skin prickle. Gentlemen, Lorenzo said smoothly, his hand resting on my bare shoulder. This is Fiammetta Brancato. She's under my protection, which means she's untouchable. The message was clear. So was the threat underneath it. I sat. Lorenzo took the seat beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine under the table, claimed me without words. The man across from us smiled. Silver hair, expensive suit, eyes like a snake tasting the air. Silvio Barone, Lorenzo said quietly, just for me. My consigliere. Silvio inclined his head. Miss Brancato, an unexpected addition to our family. Unexpected, Lorenzo agreed, but necessary. The word hung in the air like a blade. Dinner began. I barely tasted the food, some kind of veal, pasta that melted on the tongue, wine that probably cost more than my monthly salary used to. The men talked business in careful euphemisms, shipments, territories, debts. I understood enough to know I was sitting at a table with men who decided who lived and who died over dessert, and I understood that every single one of them was trying to figure out what I meant to Lorenzo Moretti. So was I. You're quiet, Miss Brancato, Silvio said, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. Overwhelmed? Observant, I corrected. His eyebrow lifted. And what have you observed? I met his snake eyes and didn't blink. That everyone at this table is wondering why Lorenzo showed mercy to my brother. That you're all looking for weakness, and that you're all disappointed I'm not it. The table went silent. Then Lorenzo laughed, a real laugh, low and genuine and utterly unexpected. His hand found my thigh under the table, squeezed once. Approval, warning, possession. Careful, Silvio, Lorenzo murmured. She's sharper than she looks. Clearly, Silvio's smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, Miss Brancato, what does a woman like you know about mercy in our world? I know it's expensive, I said quietly, and that it's never really free. Lorenzo's hand tightened on my thigh. His thumb traced small circles that sent heat straight to my core. Smart girl. The dinner continued, but the dynamic had shifted. I wasn't decoration anymore. I was a variable they hadn't accounted for, and that made me dangerous. We were leaving when it happened. The parking garage, 3 levels underground. Lorenzo ahead of me, Ezio and Rocco flanking us. My heels clicking on concrete. Then, movement in the shadows. Ezio moved first, gun already drawn. Rocco shoved me behind Lorenzo, whose own weapon appeared like magic. 3 men stepped into the light. young, hungry, stupid. Don Moretti, the leader said, all bravado and bad decisions. Carmine Mancuso sends his regards. Does he? Lorenzo's voice was winter. And what does the old snake want? To remind you that mercy is weakness, that the woman, his eyes flicked to me, makes you soft. Lorenzo smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Rocco, he said calmly, break his legs. It happened fast. Rocco moved like violence incarnate, grabbed the leader, slammed him against a concrete pillar. The crack of bone echoed through the garage. Screaming followed. The other two ran. Lorenzo holstered his gun, turned to me, cupped my face with hands that had just ordered a man crippled. Are you hurt? I shook my head, mute. Good. He pressed his lips to my forehead, gentle, possessive, claiming, Get her to the car, Ezio. Lorenzo, now Fiammetta. Ezio's hand on my elbow, the car door opening, leather seats and tinted windows, and the sound of that man still screaming as we pulled away. Lorenzo slid in beside me 60 seconds later. No blood on his hands, no expression on his face. Welcome to my world, cara mia, he said softly. Still think you can handle it? I looked at him, this beautiful, brutal man who'd just had someone's legs shattered for threatening me. I stepped in front of your gun, I whispered. I can handle anything. His eyes went molten. We'll see. That night, I couldn't sleep. I found myself in the restoration studio at 2 a.m., staring at the broken Venus, my hands shaking as I mixed pigments I didn't even need. Can't sleep either, I spun. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing only black sleep pants that hung low on his hips. Tattoos I hadn't seen before curled across his ribs. Italian script, dates, names of the dead. I keep seeing that man's face, I admitted, hearing the sound his legs made when I protected you. He crossed the room, stopped close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. That man was sent to kill you, Fiammetta, to prove Carmine Mancuso could get to you, to make me look weak. And you proved you're not. I proved you're mine to protect. His knuckles brushed my cheek. And that anyone who touches what's mine doesn't walk away. My breath caught. I'm not a possession. No. His thumb traced my lower lip, and every nerve in my body ignited. You're an obsession. He leaned in, close enough that I could taste his breath, whiskey and mint and danger. Tell me to stop, Fiammetta. Tell me you don't feel this, and I'll walk away. I should have. God, I should have. Instead, I fisted my hands in his bare chest and pulled him closer. Don't walk away, he groaned, a sound that came from somewhere primal and ancient, and then his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. It wasn't gentle or sweet or tentative. It was devouring. His hands in my hair, tilting my head back, tongue demanding entrance. My back against the table, his body pressing into mine, every hard plane and coiled muscle, heat and hunger and 7 days of tension exploding between us. I kissed him back just as desperately, bit his lower lip, felt him smile against my mouth before he lifted me onto the table, stepped between my thighs, and kissed me like he was trying to consume my soul. Fiammetta, he breathed against my throat. Tell me to stop. Don't you dare. His laugh was dark and full of promise. Careful what you wish for, cara mia. But he pulled back, rested his forehead against mine, both of us breathing hard, both of us on fire. Not like this, he said roughly. Not when you're scared, not when you're processing violence. When I have you. His eyes burned into mine. You'll be completely sure, completely willing. completely mine. He stepped back, left me trembling and aching on that table. Get some sleep, Fiammetta. Tomorrow, I'm taking you somewhere. It's time you understood exactly what you've become part of. He walked away, magnificent and maddening, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the taste of him still on my lips. I touched my mouth, felt the smile I couldn't suppress. This was insane, dangerous, probably fatal. And I'd never felt more alive. Lorenzo took me to Brooklyn the next morning. Not the gentrified parts with artisanal coffee shops and yoga studios, the real Brooklyn, the one tourists never see. We pulled up to a building that looked abandoned. Cracked windows, graffiti, a door hanging crooked on its hinges. But when we walked inside, everything changed. Polished floors, security everywhere. Men in expensive suits conducting business in rapid Italian. The smell of espresso and old money and something darker. This was my father's headquarters, Lorenzo said, his hand on my lower back as he guided me through corridors lined with photographs. Before Carmine Mancuso's men ambushed him 15 years ago. He stopped in front of a picture. A man who looked like Lorenzo, but older, warmer, smiling at the camera with his arm around a young Lorenzo's shoulders. Domenico Moretti, he said softly. They shot him 23 times, left him bleeding in the street like garbage. His jaw clenched. I was 22. I watched him die in my arms. My heart cracked. Lorenzo. I rebuilt everything from ashes and blood, Fiammetta. Every territory, every alliance, every dollar. I became the thing they feared so they could never hurt me again. He looked at me, and the raw pain in his eyes stole my breath. I became ice. No weaknesses, no mercy, no one close enough to destroy me. Until me, I whispered. Until you. His hand cupped my face. You walked into my world and became the one weakness I can't eliminate, the one thing Carmine will use against me. Then let me go. I can't. The confession came out broken. I've tried. Every rational part of me knows you're a liability, but when I close my eyes, all I see is you stepping in front of that gun. All I feel is this need, like your oxygen, and I've been suffocating my entire life without knowing it. Tears burn my eyes. You barely know me. I know you're brave enough to face death for someone you love. I know you see beauty in broken things. I know you taste like thunderstorms and feel like salvation in my hands. His thumb brushed my tears away. I know enough. He kissed me then, soft, reverent, like I was something holy he was terrified of breaking. Come, he said, taking my hand. There's someone you need to meet. The hospice facility was in Queens. Clean, quiet, expensive, the kind of place where people die with dignity instead of drowning in medical debt. Lorenzo led me to a private room on the 3rd floor. My father, he looked so small in that bed, gray, fragile, hooked to machines that beeped his remaining time like a countdown. Papa, I breathed, rushing to his side. His eyes opened, watery, confused, then recognition. Fiammetta? Mia bella ragazza? I grabbed his hand, kissed his papery knuckles. I'm here, Papa. I'm here. Matteo, where is... Safe, Lorenzo said from the doorway. Your son is safe, Signor Brancato. You have my word. My father's eyes found Lorenzo, narrowed. You're Moretti's boy. Yes. Your father was... good man, honorable. A wet cough. You... different. They say you're il diavolo. They're not wrong, Lorenzo said quietly. But your daughter saw something else, and she's under my protection now, as are you, as is Matteo. My father studied him for a long moment, then looked at me. You care for him? This devil? I didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know when terror had twisted into something that felt dangerously like falling. I'm trying to understand him, I said finally. My father smiled, weak but genuine. Amore begins with trying. His eyes closed, his breathing evened out. Sleep or something close to it. Lorenzo's hand found mine, squeezed. We stood there in silence, watching my father breathe, and I realized that Lorenzo hadn't just brought me here to see Papa. He'd brought me here to show me what he'd already done. The private room, the cutting-edge care, the reason Papa looked comfortable instead of suffering. How long? I asked quietly. I transferred him here the night you stepped in front of my gun, Lorenzo admitted. Before you woke up the next morning, before you had any idea what you'd become to me. My throat closed. Why? Because you were already mine, Fiammetta. You just didn't know it yet. We were leaving when the doctor found us, Dr. Patel, kind eyes, tired face, clipboard clutched like a shield. Miss Brancato, she said gently, I'm glad you're here. I wanted to discuss your father's updated treatment plan. Updated? She glanced at Lorenzo, back to me. Mr. Moretti has arranged for an experimental therapy trial. It's expensive, risky, but it could extend your father's life by 6 months, maybe more. The world tilted. How expensive? $200,000. I couldn't breathe. I don't have, it's taken care of, Lorenzo said quietly. I turned on him. You can't just, I already did. His expression was unreadable. Your father gets the treatment. You don't argue. That's not how this works, Lorenzo. I can't accept. It's not a gift, cara mia. His voice dropped, intimate and dark. It's an investment in your future, in us. The word hung there. Us. Dr. Patel cleared her throat. I'll give you two a moment. She fled. I stared at Lorenzo, this beautiful, manipulative, impossible man who'd just handed me 6 more months with my dying father like it was nothing. Why are you doing this? My voice cracked. What do you want from me? Everything. No hesitation, no shame. Your time, your loyalty, your trust, your body in my bed and your name attached to mine. I want every part of you, Fiammetta, and I'm willing to pay whatever price that requires. You can't buy me. I'm not trying to buy you. He stepped closer, his hands framing my face. I'm trying to keep you. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. His kiss was brief, brutal, claiming. Because if I wanted to buy you, I'd just take you. But I want you to choose this. Choose me, even knowing what I am. A monster, I whispered. Your monster. His smile was devastating. If you'll have me. I should have said no, should have walked away, should have seen the cage he was building around me, golden and beautiful and inescapable. Instead, I kissed him back, hard, desperate, sealing my fate with the taste of him on my tongue. 6 months, I said against his mouth. You give me 6 months with my father. I'll give you 6 months of whatever this is. Deal. His hands tightened on my waist. But fair warning, Fiammetta, 6 months won't be enough for either of us. He was right. I just didn't know it yet. If someone offered to save the person you love most, but the price was giving yourself to the devil, would you pay it? Tell me in the comments. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for my old life to feel like someone else's dream. I stopped going to my apartment. There was no point. Everything I needed was in Lorenzo's penthouse. Clothes, art supplies, him. Always him. He was everywhere. In the silk sheets that smelled like cedar and smoke. In the Caravaggio that watched me work. In the taste of espresso he brought me at midnight when I was still restoring the Botticelli, my hands cramping, my eyes burning. "You should sleep," he'd say, setting the cup down beside my brushes. "So should you." "I don't sleep much." He'd stand behind me, hands on my shoulders, studying the goddess taking shape under my careful touch. "Nightmares. Of your father? Of losing things I can't afford to lose." His lips would brush my temple. "Of you in the crossfire." I'd turn in his arms, press my forehead to his chest, feel his heartbeat, steady, strong, human. "I'm still here. For now." The fear in his voice always broke me. But it wasn't all darkness. Lorenzo took me to the opera, La Traviata at the Met, in a private box where we were the only audience that mattered. His hand on my thigh through the entire performance, possessive and warm, while Violetta sang of doomed love and I tried not to see the parallels. He took me to a gun range. "If you're in my world," he said, pressing a Glock into my hands, "you learn to protect yourself." I'd never held a gun before. The weight was terrifying, the power intoxicating. Lorenzo stood behind me, his body a wall of heat, his hands guiding mine. "Breathe, aim, squeeze, don't pull." The recoil shocked through me. The target's chest exploded in paper shrapnel. "Good girl," he murmured against my ear, and the praise went straight to my core. He took me to Mass. St. Patrick's Cathedral, early Sunday morning when the tourists were still sleeping. We sat in the back pew, Lorenzo's head bowed, his hands clasped like he was still that 22-year-old boy watching his father bleed out. I didn't pray. I just watched him. Wondered how a man who ordered bones broken could still believe in salvation. Afterward, he lit a candle, crossed himself. "My mother," he said quietly. "She died when I was 8. Cancer. I used to think God took her so she wouldn't have to see what I became." "Maybe God took her so she wouldn't have to lose you twice," I whispered. His hand found mine in the shadows, held tight. The first time he really touched me, we weren't even in a bedroom. The penthouse library. 2 a.m., rain against the windows. I was curled in an oversized chair reading Dante, because of course Lorenzo's shelves were full of Italian poetry and philosophy and things that made you question your soul. He appeared like smoke, barefoot, shirtless, tattoos on full display, the script I'd traced with my eyes 100 times but never dared touch. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Can't stop thinking about you." No pretense, just raw honesty. About how you look in my shirts, how you hum when you're restoring, how you taste when I kiss you. He crossed the room, knelt in front of my chair, ran his hands up my bare legs, pushing the hem of his borrowed t-shirt higher. "Tell me to stop, Fiammetta." I didn't. He kissed his way up my thighs, slow, reverent, devastating, his hands everywhere, my breath coming in gasps, the book falling to the floor. "Lorenzo, say my name like that again," he growled against my skin, "like I'm the only man who'll ever touch you, like you're already mine." "I am," I heard myself say. "God help me, I am." He rose then, lifted me into his arms like I weighed nothing, carried me through the darkened penthouse to his bedroom, a place I'd never entered, never been invited. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a bed the size of a small country, moonlight turning everything silver and dangerous. He laid me down, stood at the foot of the bed just looking at me, his t-shirt bunched around my hips, my hair wild, my pulse visible in my throat. "You're sure?" His voice was gravel and need. "Because once I have you, Fiammetta, I'm never letting you go. Not to Carmine, not to fear, not even to God himself." I sat up, pulled his shirt over my head, let him see me, all of me, in the moonlight. "Then stop asking and take what's yours." What happened next existed outside of language. His mouth on every inch of my skin, my hands in his hair. The taste of him, salt and hunger and something that felt like coming home. He learned my body like he was memorizing scripture. Every sound I made, every place that made me arch, every whispered plea. And when he finally moved inside me, slow and deep and perfect, his eyes never left mine. Mine, he breathed against my lips. Say it. Yours, I gasped. Only yours. The world shattered, reformed, shattered again. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like us, sweat and sex and something deeper. His fingers traced patterns on my spine, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. I love you. The words hung in the air. I wasn't sure which of us said them first. Maybe we both did. Maybe it didn't matter. This is insane, I whispered. We barely know each other. I know you'd die for the people you love. I know you see beauty where everyone else sees damage. I know you make me feel human again. His arms tightened around me. That's enough. Is it? It has to be. He kissed the top of my head. Because I'm in too deep to stop now, cara mia. We both are. He was right. We were drowning together, and neither of us was fighting to surface. The attack came 3 days after I gave myself to Lorenzo completely. I was in the restoration studio, working on Venus's damaged face, when Ezio appeared in the doorway, moving too fast, phone pressed to his ear, expression darker than I'd ever seen. Where's Lorenzo? I asked, setting down my brush. Dealing with a situation at the docks. You need to come with me, now. What's wrong? Matteo's missing. My blood went ice cold. What? He didn't show up for his check-in. His apartment's been tossed. Blood on the floor. Ezio's jaw clenched. Carmine Mancuso took him. The room spun. No. Lorenzo said he was protected. Protection only works if the subject follows the rules. Ezio grabbed my arm, not gently. Your brother's been sneaking out, meeting people Lorenzo explicitly forbade, and now Carmine has him. Then we get him back. It's a trap, Miss Brancato. Carmine wants Lorenzo to come for the boy, wants him emotional, distracted, vulnerable. I don't care, I yanked free. That's my brother. We're not leaving him to... My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. Fiammetta Brancato? A voice like rust and old blood. This is Carmine Mancuso. I believe I have something of yours. If you hurt him... Oh, I'll do much worse than hurt him, Bella. Unless you convince your monster to meet me. Alone, tonight. The old cannery on Pier 47, midnight. Lorenzo won't... He will. For you. A wet laugh. He's already shown his weakness, girl. Everyone knows the Ice King melted the moment you stepped between him and that gun. Now I'm going to use that heat to burn his empire to ash. The line went dead. I stood there, shaking, my mind racing through scenarios that all ended in blood. Ezio was already on his phone. Don Moretti needs to know. No. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Excuse me? If we tell Lorenzo, he'll walk into that trap. He'll risk everything. His empire, his men, himself, to save Matteo. And Carmine knows it. I grabbed Ezio's arm. We have to find another way. There is no other way. Your brother's already dead unless I go instead. Silence. Absolute. Deadly. That's suicide, Ezio said finally. Maybe. Or maybe Carmine underestimates me the same way everyone else does. I straightened my spine. I'm not helpless, Ezio. Lorenzo taught me to shoot. I know how these men think, and I'm betting Carmine wants me more than he wants Matteo. Why? Because I'm the weakness. I'm the crack in Lorenzo's armor. If Carmine has me, he has leverage, power. a way to destroy the man who's untouchable. Ezio studied me for a long moment. Then, something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Lorenzo will kill me for this, he said quietly. Only if we fail. I met his eyes. Help me save my brother, please. Would you trade your life for your family's, knowing it would destroy the person who loves you? Drop your thoughts below. Ezio made 2 calls. The first was to Rocco, coded language about secondary assets and perimeter containment that I didn't fully understand but recognized as preparation. The second was to someone named Marco, who apparently owed Ezio a blood debt and ran surveillance for the family. Marco can get us eyes inside the cannery, Ezio explained as we drove through Brooklyn in an unmarked car. But he can't get us Matteo. That's on you. What about Lorenzo? Rocco's keeping him occupied at the docks. Some territory dispute that'll take hours to resolve. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be done. Or we'll be dead. Also possible. Ezio handed me a gun. Smaller than the one I'd trained with, but deadly all the same. You remember what Lorenzo taught you? Breathe. Aim. Squeeze. Good. Don't hesitate. Don't negotiate. And if you get a clean shot at Carmine Mancuso... His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Take it. The old cannery smelled like rust and dead fish and decades of rot. Ezio dropped me 2 blocks away with an earpiece, a backup weapon strapped to my thigh, and instructions that felt like a death sentence. Go in through the south entrance. Marco says Matteo's being held in the old foreman's office. 2nd floor, northeast corner. 3 guards. Carmine's in the main floor with at least 12 men. So I sneak past 12 armed mobsters, take out 3 guards, and rescue my brother. Simple. You wanted this, Miss Brancato. But there was something in Ezio's expression. Concern, maybe. Something almost paternal. Don't make me explain to Lorenzo why I let you die. I kissed his cheek, surprised us both. Tell him I'm sorry, and that I love him. Then I slipped into the shadows before Ezio could stop me. The cannery was a maze of rusted catwalks and broken machinery. I moved like a ghost, years of living quietly in New York, of avoiding trouble, of being invisible. All those survival instincts kicked in now. 1st floor was open, exposed. I could see Carmine from my hiding spot behind an old conveyor belt. 70-something, silver-haired, still moving like a predator, surrounded by young men with guns and older men with scars. She'll come, Carmine was saying, voice carrying in the empty space. Lorenzo's little whore won't let her brother die, and when she arrives, we take her. Use her to draw Moretti out, film everything, show the city that the Ice King bleeds for a woman. Rage flooded through me. Hot. Cleansing. I checked my gun, moved toward the stairs. 2 guards. Both distracted. Both underestimating the shadows. I took the first one out with the butt of my gun, cracked him across the temple, caught him before he fell, lowered him silently. The second one turned just as I fired. The silencer did its job. He went down with a wet gasp. I stepped over him, kept moving. The foreman's office had a single guard outside. Massive, armed, alert. No way to take him quietly, so I didn't try. I walked straight up to him, gun lowered, tears streaming down my face. Please, my brother, is he in there? They said I could see him if I... He raised his weapon. Back up, lady, or I'll... I shot him in the foot. He screamed. I shot him again, shoulder this time. He went down. I kicked his gun away, burst through the door. Matteo was zip-tied to a chair, face swollen, blood everywhere, but alive. Fia? His voice was broken. Oh God, Fia, you shouldn't be here. Shut up. I cut the ties with a knife Ezio had given me. Can you walk?" "I think so." Footsteps, pounding up the stairs, shouts, "Move!" I dragged Matteo to the window, looked down, fire escape, rusted but intact. "Fia, there's too many—" "I know." I shoved him toward the window. "Which is why you're leaving, and I'm staying." "What? No." I kissed his forehead. "Papa's in Queens. St. Mary's Hospice. Lorenzo will keep him safe. Tell him I love him." "Fia, go." I shoved him out the window, watched him scramble down the fire escape, turned just as the door exploded inward. 6 men, all armed, all furious, and behind them, Carmine Mancuso, smiling like the devil himself. "Fiammetta Brancato." He clapped slowly. "Brava. You're braver than I expected, stupider too." I raised my gun. "Stay back." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" He laughed. "You're surrounded, girl. Your brother's escaping. Good for him. But you? You're not walking out of here." "Then neither are you." I fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, not fatal, but devastating. He went down screaming. His men opened fire. I dove behind the desk. Wood exploded around me, returned fire from somewhere below, Ezio, maybe, or Rocco's men finally arriving. Chaos, gunfire, screaming, and then a voice that cut through everything like a blade through silk. "Fiammetta! Lorenzo!" I looked up through the smoke and ruin and saw him in the doorway, black suit soaked in blood that wasn't his, gun in hand, eyes wild with something that looked like terror. He'd found me. Of course he had. "Lorenzo!" I started to stand. The shot came from behind me. Pain exploded through my side. White hot, devastating. I fell. Lorenzo roared, an inhuman sound. Gunfire, bodies hitting the floor. And then his hands on me, lifting me, his face above mine, rain from somewhere mixing with the blood. "Stay with me," he commanded, voice breaking. "Fiammetta, stay with me, cara mia, don't you dare!" "Matteo?" I coughed, tasted copper. "Safe! He's safe! You saved him, you reckless, beautiful!" His hand pressed against my side, trying to stop the bleeding. "Why did you come here? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have traded yourself," I whispered. "And I can't lose you, Lorenzo. Not for me, not for anyone. So you gave yourself instead." Tears, actual tears, tracked down his face. "You insane, selfless. I'm gonna kill you for this. After I save you. After I lock you in the penthouse and never let you out of my sight again." I smiled, tasted blood. "Promises. Fiammetta, no, stay awake. Look at me." I looked, saw the Ice King crying, saw the monster broken open, saw the man I loved more than breathing. "I'd do it again," I whispered. "Step in front of the gun. Save Matteo. Love you, all of it. Fiammetta." Darkness pulled me under. The last thing I heard was Lorenzo screaming my name. I woke up 3 days later in a private hospital room that looked more like a hotel suite. Silk sheets, flowers everywhere, medical equipment disguised as furniture, and Lorenzo, asleep in the chair beside my bed, hand wrapped around mine, face haggard, suit rumpled. He looked like he'd been through hell. Good, so had I. I squeezed his hand. His eyes snapped open, red-rimmed, wild, searching. "Fiammetta." "Hi," I croaked. He was on me in a heartbeat, hands framing my face, lips on my forehead, my cheeks, my mouth, kissing me like I was air, and he'd been drowning. "Don't ever," he breathed between kisses, "ever do that to me again. Do you understand? I will burn this entire city down before I let you sacrifice yourself for—" "Matteo?" I interrupted. "Is he—" "Alive, safe, under guard at a secure location." Lorenzo pulled back, eyes blazing, "And furious at himself for letting you take his place, as he should be." "My father?" Still in Queens, still receiving treatment, still asking about you every hour. His thumb brushed my cheek. You've been unconscious for 3 days, Fiammetta. 3 days of me not knowing if you'd wake up. Of doctors saying the bullet missed your vital organs by centimeters. Of me praying to a God I stopped believing in 15 years ago. Did it work? The praying? You're awake, aren't you? His smile was broken and beautiful. So either God exists, or you're too stubborn to die. I'm betting on the latter. I tried to laugh. Pain lanced through my side. What happened? At the cannery? Lorenzo's expression went cold. Carmine Mancuso is dead. So are most of his men. The ones who survived are in witness protection, testifying against his entire operation. His empire collapsed in 72 hours. You killed him. Personally. No remorse, no hesitation. After I carried you out, after I made sure you were breathing, I went back, found him trying to escape, and I made sure he understood exactly why he was dying. Lorenzo, he shot you, Fiammetta. Put a bullet in the woman I love and thought he'd live to gloat about it. His hand tightened on mine. I broke every bone in his hands first, then his arms. Then I let Rocco have a turn, then Ezio, then I finished it. The casual brutality should have terrified me. Instead, I felt safe. I love you too, I whispered, in case that wasn't clear. His laugh was wet. You stepped in front of a gun for me. Then you stepped into a death trap for your brother. I think it was fairly clear. Good. I shifted, wincing. Help me sit up. You should rest. Lorenzo, help me up. He did, carefully arranging pillows, his touch impossibly gentle for a man who'd just described torture without flinching. I need to tell you something, I said once I was upright. About Matteo, about why he was really working with Carmine. I know. Lorenzo's expression softened. Ezio explained. The threats against your father, the blackmail. Matteo was trying to protect your family the only way he knew how. And you're not going to punish him. For trying to save his father? For being loyal to his blood? Lorenzo shook his head. That's not weakness, cara mia. That's the only honorable thing he's done. No, I'm going to make sure he understands the cost. Make sure he knows his sister nearly died for his mistakes. And then I'm going to give him a choice. What choice? Work for me, legitimately. No more running, no more half measures. He comes into the organization, learns the business, earns his place. Lorenzo's eyes met mine. Or he takes money, leaves the city, and never contacts you or your father again. That's cruel. That's mercy. His voice was steel. More than most get, and infinitely more than I'd give anyone else who put you in danger. Because you love me. Because I love you. He leaned in, kissed me softly. And because you somehow made me remember what it's like to be human, to feel, to hope for something beyond empire and revenge. Is that enough? I asked quietly. Love and hope. In your world. In my world, it's everything. His forehead rested against mine. But only if you stay. Only if you choose this. Choose me. Knowing exactly what it means. And what does it mean? It means you're the queen of an empire built on blood and fear. It means people will always try to use you against me. It means bodyguards and security and never being truly free. He pulled back, studied my face. It means waking up next to a monster and pretending he's a man. You're not a monster, Lorenzo. I am. No shame, just fact. But I'm your monster, if you'll have me. I thought about the warehouse, the gun, the choice I'd made to step between death and my brother. I thought about 3 weeks of Lorenzo bringing me midnight espresso and teaching me to shoot and crying in a cathedral. I thought about his hands on my body and his voice in the darkness, and the way he looked at me like I was the only beautiful thing in his ugly world. On one condition, I said finally. Anything. You let me finish restoring the Botticelli. No deadlines, no pressure. Just me and the painting, and however long it takes to make her whole again. Lorenzo smiled. Genuine, warm, devastatingly human. Deal. And you take me to see my father, today, as soon as the doctors clear me. Already arranged. Ezio's bringing a wheelchair in an hour. And you marry me. He froze. What? You heard me. I met his eyes, unflinching. If I'm staying in your world, if I'm choosing this life, then you make it official. No more under protection or under your control. I want vows. I want a ring. I want everyone to know exactly who I belong to. Fiammetta, is that a no? That's a hell yes. He kissed me, deep and claiming and full of promises. But fair warning, cara mia, I'm Catholic. Mafia Catholic, which means the wedding will be massive, traditional, and completely over the top. I wouldn't expect anything less. And it means you're stuck with me forever. No divorce, no running, no second thoughts. Good. I pulled him closer, ignoring the pain in my side. Because I don't do anything halfway. Not restoration, not love, not stepping in front of guns for stupid, beautiful men who think they're monsters. He laughed against my mouth. I really am going to marry you. Damn right you are. 3 months later, I stood in front of a restored Botticelli, Venus, whole again. Beautiful. The damage erased, the goddess emerging from her shell like she'd always been meant to. Lorenzo came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, rested his chin on my shoulder. You did it, he murmured. Made her perfect. Not perfect. I leaned back into him. But whole. There's a difference. Is there? Perfect means flawless. Whole means accepting the cracks and finding beauty anyway. I turned in his arms. Like us. He kissed my forehead. Like us. My engagement ring, an emerald the color of my eyes, surrounded by diamonds, caught the light. The wedding was in 2 weeks. St. Patrick's Cathedral. 300 guests. Matteo giving me away. Papa in the front row, alive enough to see his daughter marry into the most powerful crime family in New York. It was insane. It was perfect. It was ours. Ready? Lorenzo asked, checking his watch. Ezio's waiting. We have that meeting with the Calabrese family. Lorenzo. And then dinner with Silvio and... Lorenzo. He stopped, looked at me. What? I'm pregnant. Silence. Absolute. World-stopping. Then, his hand on my stomach, reverent and terrified and overflowing with something that looked like joy. You're sure? Confirmed this morning. 8 weeks. 8 weeks. He did the math. Smiled slow and dangerous and beautiful. The library. The library, I confirmed. He dropped to his knees, right there in the restoration studio. Pressed his forehead to my still flat stomach. Thank you, he whispered. To me, to the baby, to God, to fate. Thank you. I ran my fingers through his hair. You're going to be a father, Lorenzo Moretti. I'm going to be a husband first. He looked up, eyes bright. And a better father than mine ever had the chance to be. I swear it. I know. He stood, kissed me like the world was ending and beginning all at once. I love you, Fiammetta Brancato, soon to be Moretti. I love you too, you beautiful monster. Your beautiful monster, he corrected. Mine, I agreed. And somewhere in the city that never sleeps, in the empire built on blood and fear and old Sicilian code, The Ice King held his queen and knew, finally, completely, what it meant to be warm. The wedding was everything Lorenzo promised. St. Patrick's Cathedral filled to capacity. Flowers everywhere. White roses and calla lilies, traditional and elegant. 300 guests in designer suits and couture gowns, all of them powerful, all of them dangerous, all of them here to witness the Ice King claim his queen. I walked down that endless aisle on Matteo's arm, my brother clean-shaven, sober, terrified and proud in equal measure. He'd chosen to stay, chosen to work for Lorenzo legitimately, managing the family's real estate holdings, chosen to be part of this world rather than run from it. "You sure about this?" he whispered as we approached the altar. "Completely." "He's dangerous, Fia." "So am I." I squeezed his arm. "We match." Lorenzo waited at the altar in a custom tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. Hair perfectly styled. That scar above his eyebrow catching the candlelight. Eyes locked on me like I was the only person in the cathedral. When I reached him, Matteo placed my hand in Lorenzo's and stepped back. "Take care of her," my brother said quietly, "or I'll find a way to make you pay." Lorenzo's smile was genuine. I'd expect nothing less. The ceremony was in Latin and Italian, old school, traditional, binding in ways that went beyond legal documents. Father Benedict, who'd known Lorenzo's family for 3 generations, spoke about love and sacrifice and covenant, about how marriage in the old world wasn't just romance, it was alliance, protection, blood sworn to blood. I barely heard the words. I was too busy watching Lorenzo watch me, too busy feeling his thumb trace circles on my hand, too busy falling deeper into this beautiful, dangerous thing we'd built from chaos and choice. "Do you, Lorenzo Domenico Moretti, take this woman?" "I do." No hesitation, eyes never leaving mine. "And do you, Fiammetta Rosa Brancato, take this man?" "I do." The ring slid onto my finger, white gold to match my engagement ring, etched with Italian script I'd memorize later. His words, his vow, il mio cuore, la mia anima per sempre, my heart, my soul, forever. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may." Lorenzo kissed me before Father Benedict finished, claimed my mouth in front of God and the entire New York underworld, declared ownership and love and forever all at once. The cathedral erupted in applause. We walked back down that aisle together, husband and wife, king and queen, 2 broken things made whole. The reception was at Lorenzo's, our penthouse, transformed into something from a fairy tale. String lights and champagne towers and a 12-tier cake that probably cost more than my first car. Live orchestra, dancing, speeches from men who'd killed for Lorenzo and would die for him without question. Silvio toasted us with tears in his eyes. "To the woman who made our Don remember his heart, and to the Don who finally chose life over death." Rocco, already drunk, shouted about babies and legacy and how he'd teach my son to fight. Ezio said nothing, just raised his glass and nodded once. Approval, respect. My father, fragile but alive, his experimental treatment buying us time, held both our hands and blessed us in Italian. "Che Dio vi benedica." May God bless you. And somewhere around midnight, Lorenzo pulled me onto the dance floor for our first dance as husband and wife. "Happy?" he murmured against my temple. "Terrified," I admitted. "Happy, in love, pregnant, married to the most dangerous man in New York. It's a lot." "Regrets?" I looked up at him, saw the vulnerability hiding behind the question. "Not even one." Relief flooded his expression. "Good, because you're stuck with me now, Mrs. Moretti." "Mrs. Moretti." I tested the name, liked how it felt. I could get used to that. "You better." His hand splayed across my stomach, protective, possessive. You're carrying the future of this family, the next generation. Everything I've built will belong to our child. I covered his hand with mine. Boy or girl? Doesn't matter. But his smile said otherwise. Though a daughter who looks like you and has your fire, the city won't know what hit it. Or a son with your eyes and your ruthlessness. God help us all. We danced through 3 songs. Then Lorenzo leaned down, voice dropping to that intimate register that made my knees weak. I need you out of this dress, Mrs. Moretti, preferably in the next 5 minutes. We have 300 guests. I don't care. His teeth grazed my earlobe. I've been watching you all day in white lace and promises, and I'm done being patient. Lorenzo, he was already moving, guided me through the crowd with excuses and smiles, and the kind of authority that made people step aside. We made it to the bedroom. He locked the door, turned to me with eyes gone molten. Come here, wife. I went. Later, much later, we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like us, the city lights painting our skin gold. Tell me something, Lorenzo said quietly, fingers tracing my spine. The warehouse, that first night, when you stepped between my gun and Matteo, did you know I'd let you live? No. Then why? Because he's my brother. Because I couldn't watch him die. Because... I turned to face him. Because even then, looking at you, I saw something. A crack. A possibility. Like maybe the monster could choose mercy. I'd never shown mercy before. I know. I haven't shown it since, except to you. I know that too. I kissed his jaw. Does it scare you? How much I changed you? Terrifies me, he admitted. Every day I wake up and wonder if today's the day you'll realize what I am and leave. Every day I expect you to look at me and finally see the monster instead of the man. Lorenzo, I made him look at me. I've always seen both. The monster who orders bones broken, the man who lights candles for his mother, the king who built an empire on blood, the husband who cries when I'm hurt. You're not one or the other. You're all of it, and I love all of it. His kiss was answer and vow and relief. I won't let anything happen to you, he whispered fiercely. Or our child. I'll burn the entire world down first. I know. I settled against his chest, hand over his heart. But maybe we don't have to burn it. Maybe we build something new, something better. Like what? Like a legacy that's more than fear and violence. Like children who know their father as more than the Ice King. Like a marriage built on choice instead of necessity. He was quiet for a long time. Then, you really think that's possible? In my world? Our world, I corrected. And yes, I think we make it possible. Together. His arms tightened around me. Together. We fell asleep like that. 2 broken things made whole, wrapped in promises and possibilities, and the kind of love that rewrites rules. 6 months later. I stood in the nursery, walls painted soft gray, crib assembled by Lorenzo's own hands, Botticelli prints on the walls because of course our daughter would grow up surrounded by art. Our daughter, Lucia Domenica Moretti, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, born screaming with Lorenzo's dark hair and my green eyes, and a fury that suggested she'd inherited both our stubborn streaks. Lorenzo sat in the rocking chair by the window, shirtless, our daughter sleeping on his bare chest, his hand covering her entire back. She's perfect, he whispered for the 100th time. She's 3 days old and already has you wrapped around her finger. Damn right she does. His smile was soft, odd, completely different from the man who'd held a gun to my brother's head. I'd give her the world. Please don't. The world's a mess. Then I'll fix it first, make it worthy of her. I crossed the room, kissed his forehead, looked down at our miracle. You know what I just realized? I said softly. What? The night I stepped in front of your gun, I thought I was saving Matteo, but really, I touched Lucia's tiny hand, watched her fingers curl around mine. I was saving us. Saving this. Saving the family we didn't know we'd become. Lorenzo's eyes, those beautiful, deadly eyes filled with tears. Thank you. For what? For stepping in front of the gun, for being brave enough to love a monster, for giving me a reason to be more than what I was. He looked at Lucia, at me. For everything. I leaned down, kissed him while our daughter slept between us, tasted salt and joy and forever. Worth it, I whispered against his mouth. Every second. He pulled me closer, careful not to wake the baby. Every scar, every fear, every moment of terror, all of it, worth it for this. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the Ice King held his family and knew peace. And somewhere in the universe, fate smiled. Because some love stories start with violence and end with hope. Some monsters learn to be human. Some women step in front of guns and rewrite the rules of hell itself. This was ours. Dangerous, beautiful, whole. The night I stepped in front of the gun, I thought I was facing death. Instead, I found life. So there you have it, darlings. The night Fiammetta Brancato stepped between a gun and her brother and changed the Ice King forever. The nights that followed, blood and champagne and choices that led to vows. The morning their daughter was born, and Lorenzo Moretti finally understood what it meant to be whole. This is the story of how monsters fall in love, how mercy becomes strength, how stepping into the darkness can lead you to light. If you loved this journey through shadows and silk, through violence and vows, through the kind of love that rewrites empires, hit that subscribe button, because there are more stories waiting in the dark, and I promise you'll want to be here when they ignite. Drop a comment below. Would you step in front of the gun? Would you choose the monster? Would you rewrite hell for love? I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay dangerous, stay beautiful, and remember, sometimes the best love stories start with a bullet and end with a lullaby. Ciao, Bellas.